What if you went to the grocery store tomorrow and half of what you needed simply wasn't there? No warning, no restock date, just empty shelves and an out of stock sign where your staples used to be. Here's the thing, this isn't a hypothetical. It's not a doomsday fantasy. It is already happening, quietly, in grocery stores across America, and most people are walking right past the evidence without even realizing it. The foods disappearing aren't exotic imports or luxury items. They're the basics, the things you've reached for your entire life without a second thought. And the reasons they're vanishing are more serious than a simple restocking delay. In this video, we're going to walk through 9 critical foods that are disappearing from shelves right now, why each one is becoming scarce, and what you should be doing today to protect your family. We'll also cover some bonus essentials that most people completely overlook, items that could end up being the most valuable things in your pantry when it really counts. Stay until the end because the last part could genuinely change how you think about food security. Welcome to Food Decider, the channel that helps you make smarter decisions about what goes on your table and why. If you're new here, hit subscribe and give this video a like. It helps more people find this information before it's too late. Now, let's get into it. Let's start with something that most people don't even know exists, and that's exactly the problem. Canned butter. Real, actual butter sealed inside a can for long-term storage. Not margarine, not a butter-flavored spread. Real butter with a shelf life of 5 to 10 years compared to the 1 or 2 months you get from the refrigerated stick sitting in your fridge right now. For a long time, canned butter was a quiet secret that serious preppers knew about and almost nobody else did. That's changing fast, and not in a good way. Demand is rising, but production is moving in the opposite direction. Only 3 major U.S. brands produce canned butter, and 2 of them are facing serious setbacks right now. One dealt with a factory fire, the other is struggling with tin can supply shortages that have no clear resolution in sight. The result is a product that's becoming difficult to find and significantly more expensive when you do find it. A can that cost $8 last year is now running $14, and many suppliers are completely out of stock. Why does this matter beyond the obvious? Because butter isn't just a food, it's comfort, it's normalcy. When everything around you feels uncertain, spreading real butter on a piece of fresh bread is a small but powerful thing. That matters more than most survival guides will ever tell you. If you're stocking canned butter, keep it in a cool, stable environment. A basement is ideal, not a garage, not a shed. Temperature swings will shorten its life. Store it right and it'll be there when you need it. Now let's talk about something that sits quietly on grocery shelves and rarely gets a second glance. Evaporated milk, specifically in pull-tab cans. This isn't the same as condensed milk, and it's not fresh milk. Evaporated milk is concentrated, shelf-stable for 1 to 2 years, and packed with protein and calcium. The pull-tab design matters more than it sounds. During a power outage or extended emergency, not needing a can opener is a genuinely useful thing. Small details like that add up quickly in difficult situations. The problem is that dairy plants are shifting their priorities. Fresh milk and cheese generate higher profit margins, and so production of shelf-stable dairy products is being scaled back. Shelves that used to be fully stocked are now showing gaps and out-of-stock labels more often. If you're building a serious pantry, aim for at least 48 cans and rotate your stock regularly. Evaporated milk works seamlessly in cooking and baking, and your family likely won't notice the difference. Here's one that signals a much bigger problem than it appears on the surface. Small, 6-ounce cans of tomato paste are quietly disappearing, and the reason behind it should concern anyone paying attention to food supply trends. California produces 95% of the processing tomatoes used in the United States. That's a striking concentration of supply in a single region, and that region is under serious pressure right now. Water restrictions have tightened dramatically, labor shortages are ongoing, cost production has climbed steeply. On top of that, the tin-plated steel used to make the cans has surged in price by 40%, pushing manufacturers to focus on higher-margin products. Tomato paste, a humble little can that cost less than $1, is getting left behind. This matters because tomato paste is one of the most versatile ingredients in a long-term pantry. It can transform basic, repetitive meals into something that actually tastes like food. Spanish rice, chili, soups, sauces, a single can of tomato paste can make a meal feel real. Its shelf life reaches up to 3 years when stored properly. Stock up whenever you find it, because shortages in this category are expected to continue well into next year. Let's talk about something that most home cooks take completely for granted.
Those little 3-packs of active dry or instant yeast are becoming harder to find, and the reasons go back to decisions made during and after the pandemic. When home baking exploded in 2020, yeast production ramped up. When that wave subsided, manufacturers downsized. The problem is that home baking never fully retreated. More people bake at home now than before the pandemic, but the supply infrastructure has never caught back up. Standard yeast packets have a frustratingly short shelf life. 6 months in your pantry, maybe 2 years in the freezer, and even then viability decreases over time. Better options exist. Vacuum-sealed yeast bricks can last up to 5 years, or you can learn to maintain a sourdough starter, which, if you care for it properly, gives you a virtually indefinite source of leavening that never runs out. Bread carries enormous psychological weight. In a crisis, the ability to bake a real loaf is about more than calories. It signals stability. It signals normalcy. It is, in ways that are hard to quantify but very easy to feel, important to morale. If you don't have at least 6 months of yeast stored right now, you're already behind. Now here's one that surprises people when they first hear about it: shelf-stable bacon. Real bacon, fully cooked, no refrigeration needed, a shelf life of 1 to 2 years. It sounds almost too good to be true, but it exists, and it's one of the most valuable things you can add to a long-term food supply. Protein is notoriously difficult to stockpile. Canned meats exist, but the flavor often suffers badly enough that people resist eating them even when they're hungry. Shelf-stable bacon doesn't have that problem. The smell alone, that unmistakable bacon aroma, can transform the feel of a difficult day. The flavor can turn a bowl of bland rice and beans into something that actually feels like a meal. In extended difficult situations, food fatigue is a real psychological threat. Anything that makes eating feel less like a chore and more like a comfort is genuinely valuable. The bad news is that major brands are already discontinuing shelf-stable bacon or pushing it into backorder. If you find it on a shelf, buy it immediately. Don't wait on it. Something most people don't think about until they're deep into emergency food planning is flavor, and nothing delivers flavor as efficiently as bulk Bouillon Cubes. Large containers of 200 cubes or more are becoming increasingly rare, and prices are rising. But think about what you're actually getting. At roughly 5 cents per cube, you can make a full cup of rich broth. Compare that to $2 for a can of pre-made broth. A shoebox-sized container of Bouillon Cubes can yield the equivalent of 200 cans of broth. The storage efficiency alone is remarkable. When you're living on beans and rice and canned vegetables day after day, the difference between plain cooked rice and savory cooked rice is the difference between grinding through a meal and actually enjoying it. Bouillon also provides sodium, which supports physical effort and electrolyte balance. Stock at least 200 cubes. Bulk containers are disappearing faster than most people realize. Here's a category that gets overlooked almost universally, and that's a real mistake: canned sardines and mackerel. Most people reach past these on the shelves, defaulting to tuna out of habit, but sardines and mackerel are nutritionally superior in several important ways. They're rich in omega-3 fatty acids, high in protein, and dense with essential fats that support brain function, heart health, and inflammation reduction, things that matter enormously under prolonged stress. The supply picture is genuinely alarming. Overfishing is shrinking global fish populations faster than they can recover, and climate change is disrupting the ocean conditions these fish depend on. Prices have doubled over the past 3 years. If you're building a serious food reserve, aim for at least 60 cans of sardines and 40 cans of mackerel, ideally packed in olive oil for the extra calories and healthy fat. If you've never eaten sardines, start with 5 cans and experiment. They're an acquired taste for many people, but the nutritional payoff is significant, and the supply situation is only getting tighter. Bulk white sugar, the 25 and 50-pound bags, is easy to dismiss as just a sweetener, but that framing undersells what sugar actually is in a survival context. Sugar is a preservative. It makes jams, jellies, and candied fruits shelf-stable without refrigeration. It's a dense source of caloric energy, and historically it has functioned as a barter commodity. During past economic collapses, sugar has been traded for jewelry. Its value extends far beyond the kitchen. Right now, warehouse clubs are beginning to limit purchases while prices continue climbing. Stored correctly in food-grade buckets with tight lids, sugar has an essentially indefinite shelf life. Brown sugar and powdered sugar add versatility to your stockpile. And never underestimate the morale value of being able to bake something sweet during a difficult stretch. That ability to create comfort, to offer something that feels like a small celebration, is more valuable than most people give it credit for. The last of the 9, and arguably the most fundamental, is cooking oil. Vegetable oil, canola. These are things most of us buy without thinking, and their disappearance from the supply chain is a quiet emergency that doesn't get nearly enough attention. The causes are multiple and compounding. Sunflower oil supply was devastated by conflict in Eastern Europe. Palm oil exports face restrictions. Soybean oil prices remain stubbornly high. The result is that cooking oil prices have roughly doubled and availability has dropped sharply. Here's why this is non-negotiable. Fat is essential to human health in ways that protein and carbohydrates alone cannot compensate for. A diet of beans and rice, however nutritious in other respects, is critically deficient in fat. 1 tablespoon of cooking oil is 120 calories of pure fat, and without adequate fat in your diet, health problems develop quickly. Stock up to 12 gallons, rotating every 2 months to keep it fresh. Coconut oil makes a good backup with a longer shelf life, though it costs more and has a distinct flavor. Don't overlook this one. Without cooking oil, the rest of your pantry is incomplete. Beyond those 9 foods, there are several items that most people never think to stockpile, and that oversight can be costly. Powdered eggs are one of the most underrated items in long-term food storage. Fresh eggs spoil quickly and require refrigeration, 2 things you can't count on during an extended emergency. Powdered eggs solve both problems. They work identically to fresh eggs in cooking and baking, and they carry a shelf life of up to 10 years. Prices are rising and availability is tightening. Start with a small can to make sure your family accepts the taste and texture, then build your supply toward a full year's worth. Instant coffee is another item that most people ignore, and that's a mistake even for people who don't drink coffee. For those who do, instant coffee provides more than caffeine. It provides psychological stability. The ritual of a hot cup in the morning is one of those small acts of normalcy that anchor people during destabilizing times. It has a shelf life of up to 20 years, and it's an exceptional barter item. Lightweight, compact, universally valued. Climate disruption in coffee-growing regions is already affecting supply and pushing prices up. Stock at least 10 jars for personal use and keep smaller packets specifically for trade. Dried beans deserve more attention than almost any other food in this category. They are nutrient-dense, extraordinarily versatile, and have a shelf life that approaches indefinite when stored correctly. Black beans, pinto beans, lentils, these are the workhorses of a resilient food supply. They can become soups, stews, chili, rice dishes, or be ground into flour. They're consistently among the first foods to disappear when crisis hits, and prices for bulk bags have nearly doubled over the past 2 years. Store them in 5-gallon food-grade buckets with oxygen absorbers, and rotate your supply regularly. Honey might be the most remarkable food on this entire list. Archaeological discoveries have found honey in ancient Egyptian tombs that remained perfectly edible after thousands of years. No other food has a shelf life like that. It's energy-dense, works as a natural preservative, and has well-documented antibacterial and anti-inflammatory properties. Bee populations are declining due to pesticide use and habitat loss, and demand for natural sweeteners is rising at the same time. Prices are increasing, and localized shortages are already happening. Stock raw, unfiltered honey in glass jars. If it crystallizes, that's natural. Gentle reheating brings it back to liquid. And finally, salt. It's so fundamental that it's easy to overlook entirely. Salt is a preservative. Without it, there's no reliable way to cure meat, preserve vegetables, or extend the life of fish. It maintains electrolyte balance in the human body under physical stress. Historically, it was used as currency, which is where the word salary actually comes from. During extended supply disruptions, salt's trade value could rival almost anything else on this list. Stock at least 25 pounds across table salt, kosher salt, and sea salt. Store it in airtight containers to prevent moisture and clumping. Stored correctly, salt doesn't expire. It is, quietly, one of the most perfect survival items that exists. Now let's talk about why all of this is happening, because understanding the causes is what allows you to stay ahead of them. The first driver is supply chain disruption. The global food system is deeply interconnected and surprisingly fragile. A factory fire in one state ripples outward and affects availability nationwide. A labor shortage at a California processing plant shows up as empty shelves in Ohio and Texas. International conflicts interrupt the flow of raw materials, tin, steel, agricultural commodities, fuel, in ways that compound through the entire system. This is not a temporary problem. It is the new normal for a supply chain that has been pushed to its structural limits. The second driver is climate change. Water restrictions in California are tightening, not loosening. Droughts are reducing crop yields across key agricultural regions. Ocean temperature changes are disrupting fish populations in ways that take decades to recover. Bee populations are declining under environmental pressure. These are not distant. They are active, ongoing realities already showing up on your grocery store shelves. The third driver is corporate decision-making, and this one is quietly damaging in ways that don't get discussed enough. Large food companies operate on profit margins. Products with long shelf lives are, from a business perspective, problematic. If a customer can buy canned butter once and not need more for a decade, that's not a reliable revenue stream. Products that don't turn over quickly get deprioritized. Products that require specialized production get cut when that production becomes too costly. The market is actively working against the foods that are most valuable for long-term food security. The fourth driver is a self-reinforcing cycle. As more people become aware of supply vulnerabilities, they begin buying in larger quantities. Even modest increases in bulk purchasing can cause significant shortages of low-volume products. Bulk bouillon cubes, canned butter, and shelf-stable bacon were never produced at massive scale. It doesn't take many people buying extra for the shelves to go bare. And once they go bare, more people notice and the cycle accelerates. So what do you actually do about all of this? Start with storage. Cool, stable environments protect shelf life. Basements are ideal. Garages and sheds expose food to temperature swings that degrade quality significantly. Food-grade plastic buckets with tight lids are the standard for bulk dry goods. Oxygen absorbers eliminate the conditions that allow mold, bacteria, and pests to survive. Airtight jars work well for smaller quantities of honey, salt, and spices. Rotation is not optional. The most common mistake people make when building a stockpile is putting it together and then ignoring it. Food that isn't rotated eventually becomes waste. The rule is simple. Use the oldest items first and replace them with fresh stock. First in, first out. Eat what you store before you need to depend on it. Try the sardines now. Cook with powdered eggs. Make something with evaporated milk. You need to know before a crisis arrives that your family will actually eat what you've put away. Finding out they won't is not a discovery you want to make under stress. Diversify across every category: protein, fat, carbohydrates, flavor, and comfort. A stockpile of only rice and beans is nutritionally incomplete and psychologically exhausting. Variety keeps nutrition balanced and prevents the food fatigue that quietly erodes morale over time. And think about barter value. In situations where conventional commerce breaks down, what's in your pantry becomes currency. Salt, sugar, coffee, and honey are universally valued, lightweight relative to their worth, and easy to portion out. Having surplus of these items gives you options when options matter most. The most important thing to take away from this video is simple. Preparedness is not about fear. It is not about expecting the worst. It is about recognition. Recognition that supply chains are fragile, that systems fail, that disruptions happen, and that the people who have prepared thoughtfully are the ones who come through with their health and stability intact. The foods we talked about today were once common. Many of them are becoming uncommon fast. The window to act is open right now, and like all windows, it won't stay open forever. Stock what you can, diversify your pantry, rotate your supply. Every can, every jar, every bucket you put away is not hoarding, it's care for yourself and for the people who depend on you. That's everything for today here on Food Decider. If this video is helpful, share it with someone who needs to hear it. Hit subscribe if you haven't already, and we'll see you